Pac-12 Championship game. That was on Friday, which I really love that the Pac-12 game was on Friday, but no more Pac-12 title games, it seems like at least not like this. Washington and Oregon. Washington again beats Oregon by 3. Joe, I went first on the SEC, so I'll give you your conference. What did you think of this game?
Oh, Blake, this game was so fun to watch because it played out exactly as I've said the entirety of this year why Washington is so dangerous. I have said that there are so few teams that when they're firing on all cylinders, and they're gamers, they show up for the big games. They do not show up for their weaker opponents. But this Washington team is so quick to move the ball down the field. They can pick up splash plays in an instant. Rome Odunze cooked, Jalen McMillan cooked, Dylan Johnson cooked. That offense to me is the most dangerous in the country. And I know that you disagree and you think that LSU's is better. Let's not waste our time debating that. Washington's offense is so freaking good. And they were too much for Oregon. Oregon started the game a little bit slow. And any team that they face that starts the game slow is done for. Because then they try to play catch up. When you try to play catch up and switch your philosophy to playing Washington style of game, which is what they want you to do, they've got your ass. I still really believe that Washington has a legitimate shot of winning the national title now that they're placed at number 2. They got a great matchup. This team is back in a position to do some damage.
I forget the Husky fan that told me that I have to wear a Husky hat on the show if Oregon got beat by Washington. DM me, and I will wear a Washington hat on this show because of the bet that I lost. Joe, it went completely different than the way that I thought it would. And like I said, I am not a dude that's going to double down and say, hey, I wasn't wrong. I was wrong. I did not think that Oregon would be the team that struggled to run the football. And I was wrong there. And look, I will admit, I still think that Washington, I don't think that they're a complete team. I'm going to continue to have that take. I just don't. I don't think that of the other 4 teams that are here in the playoff, I think they're the least complete. But they might have the biggest strength in what they do offensively, right? I was completely dumbfounded that that not only did I thought McMillan would go off. I know we kind of mentioned that a little bit. I thought that Oregon would be the team that could come in here and bully Washington up front and run the football. And I said that Bucky Irvin, Joe, I literally said if Bucky Irvin, you remember, if he does not get 18 to 20 touches on the ground, they're going to lose. They gave him 9. And it wasn't enough. They abandoned the run way too early. And I know that he was getting stopped early. But just because you're getting 3 yards in a cloud of dust on some runs in a championship game, to me, doesn't mean you should abandon it. But the biggest thing here was Washington controlling the clock, controlling the tempo, even when they lost the lead and Oregon came storming back. So the biggest thing for me here, Oregon was so bad on 3rd down when Bo Nix should have been able to convert. Washington was able to stop them. Holding on to the football for as long as they did, 37 minutes for Washington time of possession. They have not done that all year. But Bo Nix's inability to convert on 3rd down, Joe, they were 3 for 10. Do you want to know what he was passing the football, I might add? 3 for 9.
What is it?
3 for 9. So him going 3 for 9 on 3rd down is abysmal. So I know that he had a lot of hype in reference to the Heisman, and a lot of LSU fans, for example, were constantly tweeting the odds. Bo Nix, I hate to put it on one dude. Bo Nix not being able to convert on those 3rd downs are a big thing, but Washington just ran all over Oregon. They out-physicaled Oregon. I can't believe I'm coming in here and saying that. I did not expect that to happen.
Well, that was one thing that I had always been talking about, and then you disagreed with me. I thought that Washington's offensive line is really freaking good. I've said that the whole preseason up until this point, that there are a number of NFL guys on that offensive line, especially at their left and right tackle spots. They are capable of being more physical, but what they did that has not happened up until this point is that their defensive line showed up and played, and they have that in their capabilities. They can show up and play physically against Texas. I think the biggest attribution, though, to why Oregon lost this game, I think that Will Stein shit his pants. I straight up think that he coached not to lose in his decision making with all of the play calling. The second that the first drive that they sputtered so quickly, the first 2-3 and outs that they had to start the game, which you can't do against Washington, I had a very confident feeling that Washington was going to pull out, win this game. You have to be a little aggressive. I'm not saying that you try to call all the same stuff as Washington to go shot for shot with them, but you can't be doing all of this short to intermediate play calling when you already did it against them once and they're prepared for it and they're ready for it. I thought it was really scared play calling, and it was an approach of like, I've been calling this offense this way all year long. Why would I change it? And it freaking killed them. It killed them.
And not only that, Joe, I thought that there were so many opportunities that Oregon should have taken advantage of that they didn't. Let me explain. When Michael Penix threw that interception, Bo Nix cannot turn around and throw his own pick. He's trying to throw the ball away, and he can't get it out of bounds. I don't know if it's arm strength or what he was trying to do. Then he throws an interception. I'm like, what are you doing? At worst, punt, throw it out of bounds, punt it, put them on their own 10-yard line, and wipe your hands of it, right? It's a bad possession. But, Joe, Oregon I felt like in both of these games, and I like Dan Lanning a lot, I felt like it's a little too big for him. It feels like the way that the style and the way that they're coaching is a little bit too much for him right now. He's learning on the job. That's always the problem that you have when you have a first-time head coach. They're learning on the job. He refused to slow the game down. It was like you could tell, and maybe you didn't feel this, but this is the way I felt.
No, I felt that.
I felt like Dan Lanning, even when they went up and scored and took the lead, they felt the pressure the entire time. He didn't just say, let's take a deep breath, run the football a little bit, get some nice completions, put a drive together. And the times that they actually did that, I think they had a 15-yard drive for a touchdown, a 12-yard drive for a field goal that they got in there. When they did it, they had success. But when they felt uptight, you couldn't fit a grease BB, okay, in any – I'm not going to say where you could put it, but you couldn't fit a grease BB anywhere in any orifice of what they have. They play so uptight in these big games. It's Joe, the other big game, I say big game that they played. You can say it's not a big game. Texas Tech on the road in Texas, away from home for the first time. It was the same exact way. Dan's going to have to learn not to be uptight for them to win these big high-profile games. And he's going to have them next year when he goes into the Big Ten.
I agree with that. I think that the moment did get a little too big for him, but I'm going to bring this back into what I just said about Will Stein. I also felt just collectively from a coaching standpoint, from a preparation standpoint, it really did feel like Oregon hubristically stepped into this game and said, it is a good word, very, very overly confidently stepped into this game and said, we're going to just play our game the way that it's been working for us during this stretch. Why would we make any adjustments based on the way that their roster is built? Because again, frankly, it comes down to offensive and the defensive decision-making, why they wouldn't be more aggressive and go after Michael Penix and force him to make mistakes. And then on the offensive side of the ball, why would you not pay attention to the deficiencies that they have in their secondary and not take those deep shots? Instead, you allowed their linebackers and their defensive line to make a ton of plays, which is their biggest strength on their defense.
Right.
It's just a really weird approach, and it's just so egotistical to say they're going to have to come down to our level. We're not going to theirs.
Well, I think another thing, Joe, like I'm pretty sure I tweeted this at you or to you. Not only did Bo Nix go 3 for 10 on third or 3 for 9 on third down, they went 3 for 10 on third down. The simple nature that you allowed a team like Washington to go 10 for 15 and run the football. Joe, I was again completely wrong by the game plan that they would do. You got 3rd and 3 and they're running the football with Johnson. I'm like, who is this team? I was for sure Penix was going to sit back in there and throw it to McMillan. Here's another thing too. Washington's big playability is something that You look, again, I talk, and I think you'll back me up on this. I've talked really good about them offensively. Like, think they're one of the best offense. I have, dude. I've called them one of the best offenses in the country. You better give that to me. Don't you poo-poo on that.
Because I don't remember. I'll let our listeners determine if that statement's right or not.
Offensively, they're a really good team. I think what makes them more dangerous now is that we've seen that they can do what they want. Like, I don't remember a game watching Washington and saying, hey, man, if the passing game's off, they can line up and run the football down your throat. And they just proved it to me. Yeah. And so adding that dynamic, they're literally going to have to do that in the playoff to win it. Now, I think Texas is the best matchup for them, and good on them. But, man, this is the second time that I felt like Dan Lanning, we're coming in here talking about this game, and Dan Lanning just screwing the pooch and being a little too uptight.
I'm sure in the future, I'm very high on Dan Lanning as a coach.
Me too.
I don't think he's on that James Franklin level of just falling asleep and not showing up in big games. I really think that this transition to the Big Ten is going to help because they play that physical identity. So the future is bright. We shouldn't jump to conclusions that Oregon will never get over the hump.
I think they'll get over the hump.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't see a scenario where they're going into the Big Ten, Joe. They're going into the Big Ten. So, look, last thing before we get out on the Pac-12 segment. What a hell of a ride for the Pac-12. What a hell of a ride for Pac-12 after dark.
R.I.P.
What do we do now?
Good question. The Big Ten better schedule some, and the Big 12 better schedule some late night games.
They're going to have to. They can't. They're going to have to.